Please, just let my back rest for 1 minute, whispered Elena Duarte, as her trembling hands pressed against the icy marble floor. She knelt in the master bathroom of her son's mansion, scrubbing the tile behind the toilet, a place she should never have been, not at her age, not with bones that cracked like dry branches every time she bent. Strapped to her back were her twin grandchildren wriggling and crying, their tiny bodies weighing down her fragile spine until it felt like something inside her might snap. The sharp smell of bleach stung her nose, mixing with the salty sweat running down her temples. Every stroke of the sponge was a battle against pain she no longer had strength to hide. She could barely breathe, but still she didn't stop. She couldn't. Maya, her daughter-in-law, stood in the doorway with arms crossed, watching her with the cold detachment of someone inspecting an appliance. "If you want to live here, Elena, then prove you're useful," she said, each word cutting deeper than the last. Elena lowered her head and kept scrubbing her body, shaking her dignity, slipping away tile by tile. She thought of her son, Daniel, and how she never wanted to burden him. That was why she stayed silent, why she endured. But on this day, by sheer accident, Daniel returned home early. And the moment he opened that bathroom door, everything he believed about his perfect household shattered. Maya didn't flinch when Daniel's shocked voice filled the hallway. She simply straightened her blouse as if the sight of his mother kneeling on the floor with crying infants strapped to her back were nothing more than a mild inconvenience. She offered to help, Maya said calmly, her tone polished, practiced, too polished. But Daniel's eyes, once clouded by love and routine, now sharpened with something that made her spine stiffen, doubt. Elena tried to rise, but her knees buckled under her. Daniel rushed to her side, catching her trembling hands, horrified by how light, how breakable she felt in his grasp. "Mom, did you want to do this?" he asked softly. Elena opened her mouth, but only a thin breath escaped. She dared not tell him the truth. She feared the fracture it might cause in his marriage, in his already fragile peace. Maya stepped forward quickly, forcing a sweet smile. "Daniel, she insists on staying busy. She said cleaning helps her feel valuable." But her eyes betrayed an irritation she could no longer disguise. Daniel had never noticed it before, the way her jaw tensed around his mother, the dismissive flick of her hand, the hollow warmth in her smile. But now, standing in that cold bathroom, surrounded by the scent of bleach and humiliation, everything looked different. He remembered the nights he came home late to find Elena silent on the couch, her face drained, her legs swollen. He remembered how she always said, "I'm fine, sweetheart. Don't worry about me." He remembered believing her because believing her was easier. But now he saw the truth written across her shaking shoulders. This wasn't help. This wasn't love. This was servitude. And as Maya waited for him to swallow her lie, Daniel realized something that made his chest tighten with guilt and fury. His mother had been suffering right under his roof, and he had never noticed. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, her palms pressed against the faded fabric of her dress, trying to quiet the trembling that still rippled through her body. The twins, finally free from the straps that bit into her shoulders, slept in a makeshift crib nearby, their soft breaths, rising and falling like tiny waves. For a moment, Elena closed her eyes and let the silence wash over her, a silence that wasn't peaceful, but aching. Outside the doorway, she heard Daniel's footsteps, heavy, uneven, the steps of a man whose world had cracked open. His voice, usually warm, carried something new, now steel. Her heart tightened at the sound. Elena rose slowly, each movement sending a small bolt of pain up her spine. She reached the doorway and saw him. Her son, shoulders tense, face pale, staring at Maya with a mixture of disbelief and anger that frightened her. Maya stood with arms crossed, chin high, the picture of indifference. Enough games, Daniel said quietly. Tell me the truth. Since when have you been asking my mother to do all this? Maya scoffed, tossing her hair back. Asking Daniel, she likes it. She said she wanted to help, but he wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking straight at Elena. Mom, please. His voice cracked. I need to know. Elena felt something twist painfully inside her chest. All these months, she had chosen silence, believing she was protecting him, believing that swallowing her suffering was the price of peace in his home. But when she met his eyes that once belonged to the little boy who used to slip his tiny hand into hers on their long walks home from school, something inside her broke open. Daniel. Her voice quivered. I didn't want to worry you. His breath hitched. Maya's face froze. Elena looked down at her worn hands that had washed, cleaned, held comforted, built his life from scratch, and whispered the truth she had carried like a stone in her heart. I stayed quiet because I didn't want to be a burden. I just wanted to keep your family together, even if it cost me. And in that moment, Daniel realized the deepest tragedy of all. His mother had protected him from everything, except the pain she carried alone. Daniel felt the room tilt as his mother's words settled over him. Heavy, irreversible, unforgivable. His jaw clenched, not in anger at her, but at himself. How many nights had he walked past her without really seeing her? How many mornings had he rushed off to work thinking money fixed everything while his mother was slowly breaking in the shadows of his own home? He turned sharply toward Maya, but she was already speaking, her voice sugar-coated and venomous beneath. Daniel, she's exaggerating. You know how older people get, they twist things they forget. She never complained, not once. That should tell you something. Elena closed her eyes. That was exactly the problem. Daniel took a step closer to his wife, his expression darkening. She never complained because she trusted us, because she loves us, and we let her suffer alone. Maya rolled her eyes. Oh, please. She's not a victim. She just wanted to feel useful. I gave her that. The words sliced through him. He remembered the way Elena had winced when she stood, how she pressed a hand to her lower back. When she thought no one was looking, how the spark in her eyes had slowly dimmed since moving in. Suddenly, every quiet moment, every forced smile, every, I'm fine, sweetheart, rearranged itself into a truth so painful he could barely breathe. Daniel turned to his mother, voice breaking. Mom, you should have told me. Tears gathered in her eyes, but her voice was steady. You had your life, Daniel, your happiness. I didn't want to take that from you. And for the first time, Daniel understood fully. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was love, dangerous, sacrificial, and almost deadly. The air in the hallway thickened, as the truth hung between them, raw, undeniable, and far heavier than the walls around them. Daniel felt something ignite inside him, something he hadn't felt in years, a fierce protective fire. And Maya sensed it instantly. Her posture stiffened. Daniel, she began, voice trembling between anger and fear. You're letting her manipulate you. But he was no longer listening. He was replaying every moment he had missed, the exhaustion in his mother's eyes, the faint bruises on her arms, the way she always stood up a little too quickly when he entered a room, as if afraid to be caught resting. It all made sense now, and the realization tasted like rust in his mouth. Elena tried to step back into her room, ashamed of the storm her truth had unleashed. But Daniel gently held her arm. Stay, he whispered. No more hiding. Maya scoffed, her mask finally cracking. What? So now she's the saint, and I'm the monster. Don't be ridiculous, Daniel. She chose to help. She begged to help. Daniel turned toward her slowly. The look in his eyes, cold, clear, and sharp, made Maya swallow hard. No, he said, voice steady. She begged not to be a burden. Elena's breath caught. Maya's expression twisted, but Daniel didn't waver. For the first time, he truly saw the dynamic that had been poisoning his home. The silence, the fear, the false harmony, it had all been built on his mother's pain. He stepped protectively in front of Elena. This ends now, Maya, he said quietly, but with a firmness that made her flinch. All of it. And in that moment, a fault line split through their marriage, one that could never be sealed again. Maya's lips curled into a bitter smile, the kind that revealed not fear, but contempt, finally stripped of its disguise. "You think you're some hero now, Daniel? All because your mother pretends to be fragile." Her voice sharpened, slicing through the air like glass. "She's been doing chores her whole life. Why should it be any different here?" Elena flinched as if struck. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Because this is her home," he said steadily. "Not a place for her to be exploited." Maya let out a cold laugh. "Home. Daniel, open your eyes. She doesn't belong here. She never did. She's slow, clumsy, completely out of place. My friends used to laugh the moment she walked into a room. I had to carry the embarrassment you refused to see." Elena's breath shook, tears rising, but held back by a lifetime of endurance. Daniel felt something inside him snap quietly, decisively. "So that's what this was about," he said. "Image, appearances, your pride." Maya didn't deny it. Her chin lifted higher. Someone had to maintain standards in this house. And she pointed at Elena with a disdain that made Daniel's blood run cold, was dragging everything down. For a moment, silence roared louder than any scream. Elena looked at her son not with anger, but with the weary acceptance of someone who had been called less than her entire life. Daniel saw it, the deep, familiar wound she tried so long to hide. He stepped closer to Maya, his voice low, steady, and filled with a clarity she had never heard from him before. "You didn't just mistreat her," he said. "You dehumanized her." Maya rolled her eyes, but a flicker of panic betrayed her. Daniel continued. "And you expect me to stand by you after that?" The distance between them grew cold, final, irreversible, and for the first time Maya realized she was losing. Not to Elena, but to the truth. Daniel's breath came shallow and uneven, as though each truth revealed in the last few minutes had carved a deeper wound inside him. He looked at Maya, really looked, and for the first time, he saw a stranger. Someone who had lived in his home, shared his bed, carried his children, yet never carried a shred of humanity for the woman who raised him. Maya sensed the shift and stepped forward, desperation creeping into her voice. "Daniel, don't do this. You're being emotional. Think about the twins, think about our life." "Our life?" he repeated, a hollow laugh escaping him. "What life?" "The one built on my mother's suffering." Her expression tightened. The mask was slipping faster now. "She's exaggerating, Daniel. She always wanted to please you, to insert herself everywhere." But he cut her off, his voice low and trembling. "She was breaking Maya. And you watched. You let it happen. You forced it to happen." He remembered coming home to see Elena dozing upright on the couch, her knees swollen. He remembered the faint smell of chemicals on her hands. He remembered the way she always insisted she was fine, even when her voice shook. He hadn't seen it then, but now he did. And he could never unsee it. Elena, standing quietly behind him, felt guilt rise like a tide. "Daniel, please. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to take away your happiness. You finally had a family." He turned to her, voice softening in a way it never had with Maya. "Mom, what kind of happiness is real if it depends on your pain?" Maya's eyes widened with disbelief, then fear. "You're choosing her over me." Daniel's next words dropped like a stone into the silence. "She chose me every day of her life, even when it cost her everything." Maya took a shaky step back. He continued, voice firm, resolute. "You, my wife, chose cruelty. You chose convenience. You chose yourself." A tear slid down Elena's cheek, but this time it wasn't from humiliation. It was relief. Daniel placed a protective hand on his mother's shoulder. "From this moment on," he said quietly, no one hurts her again." And in that single vow, something in the house finally shifted. The son who had once been blind was blind no more. The house was silent. So silent, Daniel could hear his own pulse pounding in his ears. His decision had been spoken clear and irreversible, yet the weight of it pressed heavily against the air. Maya stood frozen in the center of the hallway, her confidence evaporating like steam. For the first time, she looked small, cornered, afraid, not because she regretted anything, but because she finally understood she was losing control. She opened her mouth to speak, but a sudden noise cut through the tension. 3 firm knocks echoed from the front gate. The sound rippled through the mansion like a warning. Elena stiffened. Daniel's shoulders tensed, and Maya's face drained of color. Who is that at this hour?" she whispered, though she already feared the answer. Daniel closed his eyes for a brief moment, gathering strength. When he spoke, his voice was calm, steady, almost too steady. "It's the beginning of the consequences," he said softly. He walked toward the entrance, each step echoing with a clarity that made Maya's breath hitch. Elena stayed behind, leaning slightly against the wall, her heartbeat fluttering like fragile wings. She knew whatever was coming was bigger than the argument, bigger than all the months of quiet suffering. When Daniel opened the gate, 2 men stood there, one in a dark suit holding a folder, the other in a crisp police uniform. The man with the folder extended his hand. "Mr. Daniel Rios." "Yes. I'm attorney Gabriel Costa. This is Captain Almeida from the Civil Police. We're here regarding a formal complaint." Behind him, Maya broke. "Complaint about what? This is insane!" she screamed, her voice cracking. The captain met her eyes without flinching. Maltreatment, exploitation of an elder, and psychological coercion. Maya stumbled backward, shaking her head violently. No, this is some mistake. She's lying. That old woman." Daniel stepped between her and Elena, his voice suddenly sharp as a blade. "Enough." The attorney continued opening the folder. "There are anonymous reports and video evidence." Maya's face whitened. Elena covered her mouth, overwhelmed not by fear, but by the sudden unbelievable feeling that justice might finally be stepping into the house that had long been her prison. As the officers moved forward, Maya's desperation turned feral. "Daniel, you can't let them take me. I'm your wife. I'm the mother of your children." Daniel didn't look away. "You were their mother in name only." And at last the walls of silence that had protected cruelty for so long began to crumble. Maya's screams echoed through the marble halls, bouncing off the high ceilings as the officers stepped toward her. But Daniel didn't move, not toward her, not away. He stood like a man who had finally woken from a long nightmare, his body still, his resolve unshakable. "Daniel, please!" she cried, reaching for his arm as if the mere touch could rewrite everything she had done. "Think about our family. Think about the twins. You can't do this to me." He pulled his arm back, gently but firmly, as if removing himself from a chain he hadn't realized he'd been wearing. "You did this to yourself," he said quietly. The words didn't rise in anger, they fell like truth. Maya's face twisted desperation, drowning every last remnant of pride. "You're choosing her over me, a woman who has been nothing but a burden in this house." Behind him, Elena flinched at the word burden, but Daniel's voice cut through the tension. "She's my mother, a beat, and she never burdened anyone a single day of her life." The officers approached. Maya backed away until her shoulders hit the wall. "This is madness," she spat. "Everything I did for this family, for this house. I kept everything together. I kept up appearances while she—" Daniel stepped forward and Maya fell silent. "You kept everything beautiful on the outside," he said, his tone almost mournful. "But inside this house you planted rot. And I let it grow because I was too blind to look." Elena's eyes glistened. She hadn't heard her son speak with such clarity since he was a boy. The attorney closed the folder. "Mrs. Rios, please come with us." Maya shook her head violently as the officers took her gently but firmly by the arms. "Daniel, you will regret this. You need me. You think you can raise those children without." He finally looked her in the eyes, really looked, and she froze. "I don't need someone who destroys the people I love." The front door closed behind her with a hard, echoing finality. For a long moment, the house stood completely still. Then Daniel turned to Elena. She was trembling, but her eyes held a quiet, fragile relief, as if for the first time in months she could breathe. For a long moment after the door slammed shut, the mansion felt strangely hollow, its silence no longer heavy with fear, but light, tentative, like a house, learning how to breathe again. Daniel remained still, his hand resting gently on Elena's shoulder, as if grounding himself in the truth he'd nearly lost. She looked up at him with teary eyes, the wrinkles on her face deepened by months of quiet suffering, but beneath the exhaustion, something new flickered, peace, or at least the fragile beginning of it. Daniel helped her to the living room, guiding her slowly, afraid that even the slightest strain might reopen a wound he hadn't seen until too late. He sat her on the couch, placing a soft cushion behind her back, adjusting her shawl with a tenderness she hadn't felt in years. "You don't have to be strong anymore, Mom," he whispered, kneeling in front of her. "Not alone." Her lips trembled. "I didn't want you to choose between us." Daniel shook his head, eyes glistening. "I didn't choose between you. I chose what was right." In the crib nearby, the twins slept peacefully, unaware of the storm that had just passed. Daniel glanced at them, and something inside him shifted, a vow forming quietly, deeply. No more distance, no more blindness, no more letting love hide behind silence. He stood, went to the kitchen, and returned with a glass of warm water. Elena took it with shaking hands, her voice soft. "You're different today." Daniel sat beside her, resting his hand over hers. "I should have been different a long time ago." She leaned her head gently against his shoulder, and in that small gesture, the mansion, once a place of cold walls and muted tears, felt warmer than it ever had. Outside, the sun dipped low, tinting the sky with gold. Inside, healing finally began. The days that followed moved slowly, gently, like a house relearning the rhythm of kindness. The mansion, once filled with tension and unspoken fear, now carried the warmth of soft footsteps and quiet conversations. Elena walked through the garden with her new cane, each step still tender, but no longer burdened by dread. The sun touched her face differently now, not as a witness to her suffering, but as a gentle reminder that she was still here, still worthy, still loved. Inside, Daniel canceled meetings, closed his laptop, and sat with his mother at breakfast for the first time in years. He watched her pour coffee with hands that had once carried his entire childhood, and he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: gratitude. Real, aching gratitude. As the twins giggled in their crib, Elena hummed an old lullaby, one he hadn't heard since he was small. And Daniel realized that this quiet, imperfect, honest moment was the life he almost lost. Not because of fate, but because of his own blindness. He took his mother's hand. "I see you now, Mom," he whispered. Elena smiled softly. "And that's enough, my son. That's all I ever wanted." Sometimes the people who love us most suffer in silence, not because they are weak, but because they are too strong, too loving, too afraid of ruining our happiness. And the tragedy is this: love without attention becomes invisible, and invisibility becomes pain. So look closer, listen deeper, ask the questions you've been avoiding, because the ones who never complain are often the ones who need us the most. If you were in Elena's place, would you have stayed silent or spoken up? And if you were Daniel, would you have seen the truth in time? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. And hey, if this story touched your heart even a little, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. Sometimes one story is all it takes to wake someone up before it's too late.